All right. We're back. Episode 40 of Cap and Trade. I am Texans Cap. You can follow me on Twitter at Texans Cap. I'm joined by Landry Locker of Houston 610 Sports Radio and the YouTube channel The Locker Room. Daniel. See, I almost called you.
Damn, dude. Damn, Daniel.
How's it going, sir?
It's going good, man. I'm taking in this post-Astros parade. I'm fully excited about this Texans season. I'm excited to talk to you, but I'm not gonna lie, man. It's been a wild week. If you just go back to what was going on a week ago tomorrow, with Game 5 and the Texans playing, and then the potentially 2 World Series games here and an opportunity to win a World Series, and then Detroit wins and they give the Texans what they need, that number 1 overall pick. Then the parade. There's been a lot going on, man. Lots. Good stuff though.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for it all, and it's been a wild week. We went solo last week, so that was fun, and I know there's a lot going on with the Astros, and we saw the Texans game, saw against the Eagles, and there's not a whole lot to say about that game. Yeah, the offense kind of showed signs of wanting to come back to life and show some semblance of cohesion and a little bit of work despite being short your top 2 wide receivers. The rookie Cateriano gets his first touchdown of the season. But
what is it with tight ends getting touchdowns in their first games of the year? Because OJ got 2, Cook, Aikens got 1, and then he gets his.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, it was somebody had to catch him, and it certainly wasn't going to be Philip Dorsett or Tyron Johnson, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4.
Hey, so Philip was making plays though.
Yeah, 69 yards receptions, but I mean, just at a high level view, I mean, the offense, like I said, had a little bit of cohesion, coming back a little bit, but the defense is just getting worse and worse week by week. And, it's kind of one of the things I wanted to pick your brain on. You see all the different publications and outlets doing their mid-season awards, right? Their unofficial mid-season awards. And obviously majority of them for the defensive rookie of the year. Everybody's picking Sauce Gardner up in New York, and there's always been this Sauce versus Stingley discussion point through the whole year. And it's clear that Houston's not using Stingley to his strength, right? He wasn't a zone cornerback in college. He was a press man.
One of the best man corners in the history
right.
of the SEC conference.
Right.
If you just take what he actually did on the field.
Yeah. And so they're not using him that way. And that's a function of, no pass rush. That's how Lovie Smith's scheme runs. And it's almost kind of unfair to Stingley at this point, and you kind of almost wonder, if you swapped them and put Stingley up where Gardner is at, would he be having the same type of season?
I think he'd be having a better season. Yeah. I think Stingley is the better guy. And I do find it kind of weird because, we've seen Lovie Smith get like a little bit more testy in press conferences, and he wants to tell DJ Bieneme how life works and stuff when he just asks about the defense. But he got really offended, like when you would say, does scheme fit matter? And I don't think it should have when it came to actually drafting the player, because I don't think Nick Caserio should be like, well, how does this guy fit into a Tampa 2? Because we know that Lovie Smith's not along here for the long run. But Lovie would get legit offended and act like, are you kidding me? You don't think I've adapted to today's NFL? And you're watching it and it's like, yeah, this is kind of why we were a little bit worried, just in this 1-year window, not the big window, about this corner being a scheme fit. And I dismissed it because I took Lovie at his word.
Yeah.
And that hurts me.
It hurts you. Yeah. And it's just frustrating from a fan perspective, and, just watching him unjustly get, picked on from PFF and everywhere else. It's just, the grades are low. This is low. He's allowed this many, this and that.
But let's be honest, Sauce hasn't played like really good quarterbacks or really good receivers. Like, and last week, Josh Allen was hurt. So just go through the actual, and that's why I don't like these stupid stat comparisons, because they're not even factoring in. Yeah. Oh yeah. The QBR was, whatever it was with Sauce Gardner. Oh, you mean when Mitchell Trubisky got benched and Pickett came in and made his season debut? Oh, okay. Like if you go back and look at the quarterbacks that the Jets lost to and who they defeated, like there was a bad list of quarterbacks there for a while. Tua doesn't play. So Teddy Bridgewater gets hurt on the first play, and then the third stringer comes in. Yeah, I'm sure that anytime they threw at Sauce Gardner, the guy who had no business playing in an NFL game just had trouble completing the pass. Like even last week against Josh Allen, that was the case. So I think the comparisons they're hard to make, man. Like they're hard to even like adjust the stats on when you're not taking any of that into account.
Yeah, you had Baltimore week 1, Cleveland, which is Brissett, week 2.
Yeah. Keep going.
Burrow week 3. Pittsburgh, whoever he played.
They lost, by the way, they lost to Burrow and they lost to Lamar.
Yep. Miami, which they had the backup quarterback.
Yep.
The ghost of Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
The ghost of Russell Wilson.
And Aaron Rodgers' thumb, that's where he messed up his thumb. If you remember, like all the talk about the thumb or finger, that was the game because it was it was a national game that we got to watch. And it was on. He hurt his thumb. Like his thumb was bad and Lazard was out. So the Green Bay already was like shorthanded. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like we're comparing these stats and it's like, of course the QBR is that. I'm not even questioning the actual way in which it's measured. I'm just saying because I think you can speak to this better than me. Like, don't you think if you take just any amount of information like Pro Football Focus grades and other grades / stats, like it can be bad, but if you learn how to look past them, you can kind of connect everything and be like, okay, this might make sense. Yeah, you have a good grasp that PFF, when it comes to offensive line and when it comes to corner, it can be accurate, but they don't fall. There's no variables. Like it's either like this is the grade, this is the grade, this is the grade. They're not taking anything else into account.
Yeah, and if they're not targeted per se, then there's really no grade on that either. So, and PFF is just, and any stat is really just one piece of the puzzle that you put together. I mean, I unfortunately I don't have as much time as I would like to be able to watch film and really pick apart and really put together all the factors together to make an assessment on a player. I kind of have to lean on other experts to do that, but PFF or whatever stat you want to do is just one piece of the puzzle that you put everything together to kind of generate your assessment. So no, it's not fair just to go off just the fact that Gardner's player grade this year is 86.1 and Stingley's is like 65 something. And that's a function of who they're playing, like you're talking about, the function of their defensive. The New York Jets have a much better pass rush than Houston does. And, just all those things kind of factor into it. So no, yeah, I think we're all on the kind of the same page there with that. It was just, something I was thinking about on the way home today. I was listening to one podcast and they were going through the awards and just like, oh, Gardner this, Gardner that. And he's a great player. He's
really not playing that as awesome as they're acting like he's acting. As they're acting like he's playing. He's fine. Yeah. But I mean, they got a good defense. They got a really, really, really smart defensive coach. Like Lovey can't hold his jock when it comes to calling defense in the NFL at this. I mean, come on. But and they have an offense that will keep them off the field and give them a chance to win games, So I don't think it's fair to compare Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley at this point. Like that's really, really ridiculous.
No, I agree. And that's pretty much my thought on the matter. So, but we got a lot of sources of streams going tonight. We're on Twitter Live, we're on YouTube Live, and we do have the spaces open on Twitter for the Cap and Trade. I don't know why I put cap in space on Twitter Spaces, but oh well, doing too much at once. But wherever you're listening from, we appreciate you joining us. Appreciate you taking the time. We just been kind of talking about a few things, but coming up, we do have an opponent in the New York Giants coming up. And
is their quarterback a pocket passer?
Pocket passer, not very mobile.
And that's what Lovey said. Lovey said everyone assumes that he's a pocket passer. That's what he said. It's a quote.
I can't figure that. I mean, I can't figure out this roster either, because you look at this roster, you look at the Giants roster, and they're really, before the season started, they were slated to be, a bottom 5 team. And their roster paper against Houston is almost near identical.
No, it's not. It's the running back. Like, there's a difference. Like, and I know Pierce has been good, but the Giants, it's very clear. Like, the reason that Saquon Barkley not being healthy is proportional to them not performing at as high of a level. I think they have a game changer, potential top 15 skill position guy when he's healthy.
Who?
And that's the difference, man.
Beyond Barkley. I mean, that's all they have, though. That's what I'm saying is they have 2 good tackles, similar to Houston. Their quarterback's performing a little bit better this year than Mills is. A little bit better running back, but the wide receiver group in New York is just as
very comparable.
That's what I'm saying. And so, on paper, at a high level view, these 2 rosters are fairly comparable. Yet one team is 6-2, and one team has 1 win.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to a couple of things. I think Brian Daboll's a good head coach.
Yes.
And I also think that they have better assistants, because Wink Martindale is one of the best current defensive coordinators in the league. He's creative, and when maybe there is lacking personnel. By the way, Big 97's a bad dude too, for them. But that they also blitz a lot. Like, there's a lot of creativity there. There's like a nothing to lose type thing. They don't get passive, and they have Wink Martindale to thank for that. And I also think they have a very underrated offensive assistant. I think Mike Kafka was one of the keys to Kansas City. And I think if you asked
I didn't even realize Kafka was there until like week 2, and that just somehow got away from me that he got pulled out of Kansas City to go call plays there. And they tried because they had to keep Bieniemy as OC. And if you ask a lot of people, like in Kansas City, like you say, like, what's the deal with this guy? They'll say, they wouldn't have been too disappointed if Bieniemy had left, because Kafka would have become offensive coordinator, and someone wouldn't have been able to do what the Giants did, which was offer a new promotion. So I think he's kind of like Kafka. I think he's going to be a head coach probably in like 2 years, maybe even less, because of what's going on with the Giants. But I think there's a lot of Sirianni there, in that, Gerard Johnson was on our show all the time. He's now in Minnesota. He's an assistant, and he's the guy who sold me on Sirianni, because he was in Indianapolis, and he's like, dude, you have no idea how much detail this guy goes into, like, in meetings, and how much easier he makes everyone's job. And I know a lot of people are laughing right now, but Sirianni can be the guy. And you see what's happened to Indianapolis. Like, that stuff came out quite a bit after Reich was fired. It was really hitting the public eye on how
and I think Kafka's like that. So to go back to like what you think might separate these teams, I think they got a better head coach. I think they got a better assistant, and I think they got obviously a healthy, motivated Saquon.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I think Daboll did very well when he took that job, was to bring in 2 very strong coordinators to where he can be just a head coach, float all the way through the organization, make sure everything's running smoothly, instead of having to focus on calling plays and being a head coach. So, I've never been a big fan of that dual role type of mentality that Lovey does it with the defense here. So, but that's you're nailing exactly what I was wanting to bring up, is they're 6-2 majority because of their coaching staff and how strong of a staff they have, that they're able to work with that roster and win that many games. And they've got some good wins out there. I mean, they beat Tennessee, they beat Green Bay, they beat the Ravens, Jacksonville. Not much to say about that, but they held the Cowboys only to 23 points. So they're 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 definitely exceeding expectations up there. And I think with thinking about Winkdell and how aggressive he is, I'm curious to see how Pep Hamilton and Mills handle the heavy blitz that they're going to see. Um, Winkdell has a lot of wild formations. I think it was that last week we saw 3 players lined up over the center, kind of in a row, and he throws some wild formations out there. And Mills, for the most part, he handles a blitz okay according to the numbers, and we'll see if that transpires again. Now that he'll have Cooks back, what it seems like he should be back. Lovey said he's supposed to practice in full this week, despite having a Veterans Day off today. He kind of rode the bike. And if Nico ends up playing, that'd be nice to have him back out there. So that's going to be the kind of big thing, is if Pierce can continue to run well, and then if Mills can handle the blitz appropriately, that's going to be the big factor this week. I mean, because when he's under pressure, his passer rating is actually higher when he's blitzed versus when he's under a clean pocket. So, and his time to throw drops down like 0.2 of a second. So it's
and I wonder where that comes from, though, because like if like the passer rating, that's like if you get like nerdier into stats, like a lot of times, like the thing that you have to take into account when you're talking about like the blitz is like, okay, sometimes taking a sack is a little bit better, and holding on to it longer is a little bit better than just getting rid of it quick to like that, 5-yard option. And I think that's the one thing Davis Mills is good at, is like Davis Mills is good at, I'm just going to dump it to this guy. I'm not going to hold on to it, for a second longer, like maybe Deshaun, to where the guy that's in man all of a sudden gets open and you complete it. So I wonder, like, if we looked at these stats, like, is there like a really long completion Davis had against the blitz or something where someone got free where the stats get skewed? Because I don't know about you, but the way that you said, according to the stats, it doesn't feel like Davis Mills is just really good against the blitz, which I actually agree with in watching every snap of the season.
Yeah. I don't know if I can't answer the question if there's something skewing the numbers, but that's just what the numbers are showing at this point. So, we'll see if that holds true for this week. It'll be another good test for this offense to see if they can continue showing some, like we talked about with the Philly game, some semblance of cohesion, progress. I'm very concerned about the defense again this week.
Yeah.
You
should be.
Barkley, like we were talking about, one of the best running backs right now in the league, and going against probably one of the worst run defenses in the league. And so it's getting bad on the defense. They're regressing. You see the safety position, Jonathan Owens seems to be going backwards week in and week out. Now he's starting to lose playing time. For the first 6 weeks of the season, he didn't come off the field. Now 2 games in a row, he's been replaced by Murray. And so don't know really what to say about the safety position going backwards. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But the defense just is getting bad. And I really don't. I know you're you prefer losses at this point. That's a loss is a win for Houston, but at least hopefully they can make it a competitive game and have some not have a blowout type game. At least keep it competitive, because it's like a 6-point line. So we'll see if they can cover it once again, like they've been doing, covering the spread.
The guy that I think we need to worry the most about is Dexter Lawrence.
That dude is a monster right now.
Yeah, we saw what Simmons did, to the interior D line, and we've kind of seen hints throughout the season of kind of like the interior being a little bit, inconsistent, especially when you line up right over the center. I think Dexter Lawrence is the guy you need to look out for to not only stop the run, but just completely bully the interior of that Texas. This will be, I don't know how much they might try to avoid lining him up with Kenyon Green, because I think Kenyon Green probably handle it a little bit better than Can at this point, or whoever they put out there.
I don't know. Kenyon Green's kind of been going backwards the past couple weeks.
Yeah, but I mean the pass blocking and like the run blocking's fine. Like I think if you just say, "Hey, Kenyon Green block 97," I think he can do it fine. Like I don't. There's times where he looks like he might get confused and he might get lose his focus a little bit, but I think he'll be fine there. Not like fine-ish, but I think 97 is going to eat.
They're showing probably 50% of his snaps are lining up in the A gap, so he might get a little Scott Quessenberry action, which is a little scary.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, look out for 97. I'm thinking like a sack and a half.
Yeah, he's got 4 this year with 26 pressures. My goodness, that is a stellar number for an interior guy. And Leonard
Aaron
Williams
Rodgers, if you go back and look at like the post-game press conference, and I think it's only like 8 minutes, so it might be worth your time. Aaron Rodgers, like unsolicited, is just talking about how incredible 97 is. Yeah. Like I think he called him like an elite type of player or something. And that he's given what the Texans are on the inside, that's the one to watch.
Yeah. So if you're listening on Twitter Spaces and you got a question, you can hit that little comment box at the bottom right corner of the Spaces screen and tweet your question. We'll take a look at it. And if you want to speak, hit the request button. We'll see if we can work that in as well. If you're listening in on YouTube, post your comments there. We'll get to those as well. I think we already got one comment come in. We'll get to that here in a second. But a loss is a win at this point, and hopefully Houston can maintain that number 1 draft pick. So
and Detroit's going to win this week too. They got Chicago.
Well, I don't know. Justin Fields
they'll be
run 180 yards.
That's going to be easy. Detroit's going to win that one, and then maybe the Raiders beat the Colts, and you get more space between those teams. But I think Detroit wins.
We should be worried about Pittsburgh or not.
Yeah, I do. No, I 100% do, and I got into it with a list. I'm not like into it, but we had a back and forth. He doesn't think Pittsburgh would go for a quarterback, and I'm like, are you crazy? Like if they had the top pick in the draft, like that, I compared it to like the Josh Rosen thing where, a quarterback falls into your lap. You're not necessarily like fully invested. If you think there's a franchise guy there, I 100% could see Pittsburgh doing the Arizona Cardinals, Kyler Murray from Josh Rosen type of thing. But yeah, I am worried about them because they're not good.
Could flip Pickett or something. I mean, it's rookie contracts make investing in a quarterback or any first round pick not as much of an investment as it was back in 09, 08, like when Matt Stafford and Sam Bradford were signing those massive contracts coming out of college. So definitely think that's a concern. So we'll see what happens there. We got a couple questions in before we move on to some other topics. So Roe Bezel, let me hit this one here. At this point, could you give Mills another season? Let's say hypothetically prioritize elsewhere and take a second and third draft day QB for backup. I mean, you can sign a veteran backup as well. I mean, that's going to be a big discussion point as we get later in the year and into the offseason is what approach will the Texans take? Do you give Mills another season? Maybe sign another bridge quarterback, things like that, and have some type of competition and continue to build the environment around the quarterback position, or you just dive in head first, get a quarterback, and then try to build on to what you already have. So I know Landry's kind of has been more on the side of build around Mills.
Yeah, and I'm kind of starting to flip on that though. Now that the number 1 pick is a sure thing, like I'm kind of starting to flip on it. Like the not do it was if it weren't Bryce Young, but if it's Bryce Young, I'm comfortable building around him. Like I'm very, very comfortable with how much draft equity you got, with what he is, with his makeup. I'm very comfortable doing that. Very.
So the concern for you was more so if say they ended up with like pick 5 or 6 and had to give up additional equity to move up to get somebody.
Yeah, and you just had to get Levis, or you went with Stroud or something like that, or someone else, and sometimes that works out. But now that I feel like Bryce Young is in the control and there's no like variables, I could get down with it. The thing I want to, like, if they do keep Davis Mills, the one thing that I do think would benefit them, and I think it would kind of fit into what Caserio has done in the past, is they've significantly got to improve in the tight end area. And I'll point to like the Patriots, like one of their most impressive drafts was when they were able to get Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez in the same draft. And it was like, you're set at tight end for like the next however long. And we know a lot of stuff happened, but when that happened, that prolonged Tom Brady's career. Like, say what you want about Tom Brady, he's great, all that type of stuff. If they don't improve the tight end position like that, I don't know that Tom Brady's playing until 40. I mean, seriously. So that's what they have to do with Davis Mills, and the proof is in the pudding. We just talked about it. O.J. Howard, first game there. Don't know what it is, but for whatever reason, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Akins, Giants didn't want him. He comes here. Big play, touchdown. You saw you saw the young kid out of Oregon, Tegan Quitoriano, however you say his name. I interviewed him the other day. Whatever, say it.
Quitoriano.
Tegan Quitoriano.
There you go.
He scored a touchdown in the first game. You need, if you're going to bring back Davis Mills, you need to improve the tight end position because it'll help him out. And there's proof that he likes it. And it's the only reason that Tom Brady was able to have the prolonged career that he had.
Does anyone else fear the Texans are going to fall in love with Will Levis's character?
I don't know his character. I just know he has a mayonnaise viral video.
All right, KJ, I'm not sure on that one, but I have to dig in a little bit more on what's going on with his character, and if that's something that hopefully with Easterby being gone, the character.
I don't think he's on that level. I know he transferred and then he went there, but the mayonnaise coffee is the thing that everyone's obsessing over now.
So we saw some craziness go down. Is Landry? Oh my goodness! So we saw some craziness go down in Indianapolis this week, and we saw Frank Reich get fired, and Jeff Saturday is now the interim head coach, and that's really kind of upset a lot of the NFL circles with, because it's the Rooney Rule doesn't really apply to interim coaches, and for him to pull in somebody that has zero coaching experience beyond his 20-16 record as a high school coach with 1 playoff win. What do you make of that situation?
I think that Jim Irsay, it all goes back to last year. And we talked about this heading into week 1 against the Colts. I think he was very, very embarrassed that he let Frank Reich talk him into Carson Wentz. He was very embarrassed that they couldn't beat Jacksonville to get in the playoffs. I don't think he ever got over that. I don't think Frank Reich and Chris Ballard had a chance because I don't think Jim Irsay ever got over that. As far as the process to Jeff Saturday, I was as shocked as anyone else, but I really don't know. My theory, and some people have said tanking and all that, my theory is that Jeff Saturday is going to end up being in the front office in some capacity, and he's basically a spy that is going to hold everybody accountable in that organization, from the young kid that they like calling plays to the defensive coordinator to everyone on that roster, that Jeff Saturday is basically like an in-house spy, and they're trying to win. But I think he ends up in the front office in some capacity. And if I were a betting man, I would be very worried if I were Chris Ballard.
Yeah, I don't
relieved.
I don't know how he makes it after the season's over. I mean, they took away Frank Reich's power after the Carson Wentz situation, and that was Irsay demanding them get rid of Wentz without even having a plan in place. And then they stumbled into the Matt Ryan situation. And then it was Jim Irsay's call on benching Matt Ryan to go to Sam Ehlinger. And it's just really it's almost the notion that I get is Irsay is kind of inching back to the way his father was, really starting to meddle into things. Irsay kind of has was good about staying back and not and letting his football ops folks run the program, and like he did with Bill Pulling and all that. And he's itching back into really heavy meddling, and it kind of, if I was Chris Ballard, I don't know if I'd want to stick around for that. And if that's the direction that Irsay is going to start going with the things, and Ballard's always been kind of hamstrung from a cash standpoint. They've Irsay has always historically been one of the lower cash spending organizations across the league, and that's always kind of hampered Chris Ballard a little bit. But the mentality of that we can outdevelop players better than you just hasn't paid off for Indianapolis and Ballard.
But it's all about the quarterback, right? Like
yeah, I mean,
that's
he's
really
six or seven quarterbacks in 5 years, and that whole bridge program. That's the concern that I have with Houston, is trying to take that same path, and you get stuck in the same kind of situation that Indianapolis is in at this point. So I don't see how Chris Ballard is around after the season's over. I think Irsay is just going to clean house and start over again. And
I
Ballard,
think Saturday's there though.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. But I think
Saturday
Ballard
was brought there to replace Ballard. And I think that Frank Reich was something he hurdled over to where he could be inside the stadium and basically just a spy.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't say spy. Like it's pretty obvious. I think everyone's on call.
Brought in, it's more of a, hey, Jeff, give me your assessment of what you're seeing across the staff, across the organization, and report back to me after these next 8 games, and then we'll see what we need to do.
Exactly.
It's kind of giving Jeff a chance to kind of pre-screen staff and an organization to decide who can stick around and who's not going to stick around next year. I think
it's about the quarterback though, man. Like the reason that Jim Irsay is really like has this arrogance that can just appear at any point is because you got Peyton Manning and you got Andrew Luck. And then as soon as you lost those guys, it was done. So like he can talk about like hiring Tony Dungy when Tony Dungy was leaving Tampa Bay and all this like science that he talks about, but it's really all about the quarterback. And I mean that's kind of a lesson for Caserio too. Like you got to figure it out. You got to figure out the QB position.
Yeah, and that's a message I put to you on your show the other day. And Indianapolis is going to have to feel the pain of actually looking for a quarterback solution. They felt it the last 3 or 4 years when they traded out of that number 3 slot back during the Sam Darnold draft. Not saying they should have drafted Arnold, but they drafted out of that spot to take a quarterback, and they've never had the opportunity to do it since. And they're going through what a majority of teams have gone through and having to search high and low to get your quarterback solution, whether it's a vet, bridge, draft, whatever it may be. They're feeling that pain. No more stumbling into Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. So, yeah, I just want to get your opinion on that. I mean, it's just a crazy deal up there.
It's wild. Jonathan Taylor, though, right on the practice field, ready to go, running through a wall for Jeff Saturday.
Yeah.
And his fantasy owners that he's let down.
Yeah.
Not me.
Not you.
Not me.
This is the first year that I have not played fantasy football, and it's actually been kind of enjoyable.
Yeah, well,
I've always been heavy into it, and it's nice to be able to
just watch the
games without having some alternative agenda of hoping that a specific player scores or something.
Well, that's your own thing. I mean, I don't.
You can separate the two.
I can separate it. One league only. People ask me to do other. Nope, one league. No. Same one for about 15 years now.
Yeah, good for you. Now, Patrick Storm he tweeted me a question I think yesterday. He had a question about the cap space and how things are shaping up for next year. So I just figured I'd kind of dive into that just a little bit. So as of today, the cap space for next year is looking around $49 million, but that number is going to come down dramatically. So let's just say they sign 10 players off the practice squad to future future contracts right after the season's over. So that's $7.5 million coming off the cap right there. Maybe a little bit more. We'll call it 8. So you're down to 41 million. That's going to get you to 47 players on the contract. You're going to sign a few more players here and there to get up to 51. So you're looking at like 35, 36 million once you get to 51 players. And then the rookie pool today is going to take 11.5 million. So now we're down to 28, 29, which is a good number. That's plenty of cap space, especially if they're able to rework Laramie Tunsil into an extension. Maybe they end up trading Brandin Cooks in the offseason, which is something else we may dive into here in a little bit. But if they get a Laramie Tunsil extension done, you can save up probably another 10 to 12, 15 million there. If a Brandin Cook trade occurs, there's a little more, quite a bit of savings there as well, about another 10 million in cap savings. So we'll see what happens with those two players, but roughly you're going to have anywhere from 28 to 32 million heading into free agency of effective cap space. And I think your question was, would you expect more 1 to 2 year deals, or could we see 3 to 4 year deals? I think they're going to stick with the 1 to 2 year deals. The way Caserio continues to talk about outlook of no more than 1 to 2 years and how the rosters are going to change dramatically year over year, I think he may have a better opportunity of trying to find a more foundational player through free agency versus not, since he won't be as handicapped on the salary cap like he's been the last 2 off seasons. But I don't think you're going to see too many 3 or 4 year contract deals unless it's just a big name free agent that's going to command that type of deal. I think you're going to see continue on 1 and 2 year deals. Free agency, just a heads up, it looks bad next year. The free agency class, top to bottom, there's a few names in the edge. There's a few names in tight end. It's a pretty rough free agency class coming up. And so I know that the Texans have a lot of needs to cover, and you can't cover it all through the draft. So maybe he doesn't go heavy into free agency, considering the free agency class is going to be kind of weak. So that would be my response to that, Pat. Maybe do we see one big free agency signing? Possibly. He's going to have, as of right now, 11 draft picks, and that just assumes he doesn't trade down. He might trade back out of the Browns pick or something like that, end up having 12 or 13 players drafted this coming year. So we'll see what happens. But if there's anywhere, the team has so many dang needs, and I know Landry was talking about tight end. There's a few names coming out at tight end. You're going to have Dalton Schultz. Yeah, if he doesn't sign a deal after coming off. Gesicki is like, if you get rid of Brevin Jordan, then that's Gesicki because they're the same player. Evan Ingram out of Jacksonville is going to be a free agent. And after that, it falls off a cliff very quick. You get into the Austin Hoopers and Jeff Swaim and Hayden Hurst type players of the year. Ryan Griffin, former Texans great, things like that. So, Irv Smith might be the only other younger tight end. He's injured for the rest of the year. And you think so? Even with Hawkinson? Yeah. He'll be a free agent. So there's really,
that's the way it's going to be. They did give up a ransom for it.
Yeah.
It's a good trade though.
Yeah. I'm glad to see, and I'm glad you brought that up and Pat, I hope that answers your question. So the trade deadline was
I want to go back to Pat's question after.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll talk about trade in a minute.
As far as what he asked, I actually could see Dick Caserio and his scouting staff falling in love with like 3 or 4 players to where you feel like, damn, why did they like this guy too much? I actually think they're going to look at free agency as an opportunity to overpay maybe a little bit for like certain free agents, like maybe 4 guys that they feel could be part of the 4-year plan.
Well, they're going to have to overpay the Texans tax.
No, for sure. They would have to overpay, but they do have the 11 draft picks. So that's going to come down to earth. They might have the quarterback on his rookie deal. They're going to figure out some way to figure out the Cooks thing. I don't know if they're going to, be able to unleash the whole contract. They'll probably have to take some of that on the chin, and they'll redo the Laramie. But I think we're going to have, like, whether it's a tight end like Dalton Schultz, where the Texans decide, damn, you know what? Probably not worth, close to $10 million a year for 4 years, but you know what? We're going to have a rookie quarterback, and this guy has shown what he can do. So maybe do something like that, or find some edge guy that the film guys have time to get in love with. I think we're going to see some guy like not like splashes. I don't think they're going to be shopping at the top and overpaying, but there will be some guys. I don't want to use this name, but it'll be like an Eric Murray deal that might work out a little bit better, where the Eric Murray process happened, and obviously for whatever reason they overvalued that. I think we're going to see deals like that, but with a competent staff intact.
Okay. Competent staff.
They're not going to do the churn 1 year all the way through. There's going to be a couple of guys they look at in free agency and overpay that they think are going to be core guys.
Yeah.
It might have the Christian Kirk feel in Jacksonville, like on a lower level, but that's what I think they're going to do that on multiple occasions.
Yeah, there's a few names out there at edge, and Ngakwe out of Indianapolis will be a free agent. Robert Quinn will be a free agent. I know he's a little bit older. Dwayne Smoot, he's a very popular unknown name out of Jacksonville. He'll be a free agent after this year, and that's the kind of player I think, like you're talking about, that's not a top of the market name, but is a very solid, like a tier 2, maybe a back end tier 1 type of free agent, or the first wave, second wave, however you want to classify it. I think that's the kind of players that they may be trying to target. Marcus Davenport out of New Orleans is going to be a free agent. He's only 27. I think, and Arden Key out of Jacksonville, he only signed a 1-year deal there, but he's having a good season and he's only 27. So there's going to be a few names. I think you just pick and choose and sign, like you said, 1 or 2 very strong, not top of the market splash, but very strong type of free agents. And if they go like on the interior side, I think you got, I think the big popular name is going to be Deron Payne out of Washington. He'll be a free agent. No thanks for that.
No thanks.
He's going to command.
Someone's going to overpay that.
Yeah, he's going to command a lot of money. There was a couple other names in here. So Ashawn Robinson out of Los Angeles Rams is going to be a free agent.
I like Ashawn. He's from I think he's from Denton, and he went to Bama, obviously, but nah, we're good there. I think someone younger.
I don't know if he'd be a kind of a reclamation project. Would be Taven Bryan out of Cleveland. He's having a good season up there. He was a first round pick for Jacksonville back in 2018, and they let him walk. And he signed just a $4 million contract up in Cleveland, and is playing up to that contract pretty well. He's a good rotational interior guy that I think would make some sense for this team if they end up keeping Lovie Smith for another year. So
I want to ask you this. You just talked about interior run guy.
Mm-hmm.
If you could rewind right now, would you rather have Jordan Davis than Kenyon Green? Right now.
Yes.
And I like Kenyon Green, man. I think he's going to be a really good guard in this league, but you look at the way that they have struggled to stop the run. You look at like the biggest mistake that they've made in letting someone walk was DJ Reader. I think that was big. I think Bill O'Brien might still have a job, actually, if DJ Reader had stayed around. I think he would have been able to avoid 0-4. If you look at like the chess pieces and like what we're saying they need now compared to like in a whole bundle, that's going to be one we're going to look back at, man. Although I know that Jordan's hurt right now, but I'm not taking that into account.
Shout out to RJ for joining the show. Welcome. There was one question that came in on Twitter Spaces on
dude, are you talking about Jordan Davis or not? You are so ADD, Cap.
I am. Jordan Davis.
Keep moving on. You're trying to go to place to place. Jordan Davis, yes or no?
I said yes. I said yes right in the very beginning. I said yes. Maybe you're not listening.
God. Okay, we got a comment from a Twitter user at Short Dong 999.
I'm a man of the people.
What do you think of David Culley?
The Big Show asked, are they going to look at picking up Abram? No, he got claimed today. Packers claimed him. I didn't want any part of that anyway.
You didn't?
No.
By the way, we got Desmond King on In the Loop tomorrow.
Outstanding.
I've got a bunch of questions to ask him, none to do with football, really.
What are the questions about? Or what's a preview?
Let me see. I'll pull up the sheet here. Let's see. He's a Detroit guy. Figgy's like a big Detroit rap guy. Troy Harrison said that Detroit rap was still good. It sounded really weird when Figgy played it. I'm going to ask him if Iowa's boring for him to watch like it is me. Like, I can't watch that. I know he went there. I really can't deal with it. So okay. I need him to explain that to me. I also think he's a Frenchie owner. So I'll talk to him about being a Frenchie owner.
Pacey. Or is it Macy?
Pacey.
Pacey.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Got our own Instagram handle and everything. What did you think about the trade deadline in general? It was good to see.
I think Cooks should have been gone.
Well, yeah, I think he should have been gone.
And the Cowboys, I heard from a very reliable source that, and this wasn't Adam Schefter, and this was actually a between the lines Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter said the Texans wanted a 2-4.
Yep.
I automatically assumed that maybe the Cowboys wanted to give up a 4 or something like that. I heard that the Cowboys were willing to give up a 2.
Mm-hmm.
The quote I got from the cap guy was, or not from the cap guy, from someone who talked to the cap guy was, I don't even know the cap guy's name. You probably do. You probably have like a trivia question.
Yeah, I keep like a roster of all the salary cap.
I could see it. It's probably in your wallet. Right above the pics of your kids that you show people. But that he overextended himself, that Nick Caserio overextended himself. That's what I heard.
So what I was told,
they could have gotten a 2.
Yeah, it was 2 and change is what I was told that it was.
How much would you pay for a 2?
It was a 2 and change, and they take on some of the 2023 guarantee is what I was told. And it's quite disappointing that they traded a 2 for Brandin Cooks 2 years ago, signed him to an extension, and were ready to go to get a 2 back. You know, it would have been a late 2, but to get that compensation for Cooks at this point, and I could never get a number of how much money they were going to take on from the.
No, I couldn't either. The way that I got it, and this would be even more disappointing than like actual numbers. The way that I got it, and the way you know when you talk to people, like you kind of read between the lines on it. The way that I got it was that they ran out of time. Like it wasn't even like a set number, which would be fine. If whatever your set number is, if you're a GM, if you have a set number, you have a set number. And I can respect that. But the way that I got the information from my guy was they just simply ran out of effing time, which is crazy to me.
So you saw when Pelissero put out that tweet that Monday was the deadline for adjusting contracts.
Yes.
Okay. When I first started talking to this guy about this information, he goes, "Do you think it's possible that both teams forgot about the deadline?" I was like, "No, I don't think both teams would."
I don't think Will McClay forgot about the deadline.
I don't think
and I don't think Nick Caserio forgets about the deadline to when he has to like.
But it's
eat his next chicken breast.
But the fact that they let it get past Monday into Tuesday when Nick came back and offered up re-upped and wanted more compensation, the 2 and the 4, and that's when things just fell apart. The deadline was passed for adjusting the contract, so they couldn't get anything done. And
yes, and I think they were en route to getting done. Like sometimes you can't get it done.
Cooks's tweet, his frustration was all about the fact that he thought a deal was done. He was getting ready to go to Dallas. And then the carpet.
Do you not think it's a coincidence that now all of a sudden they're turning the heat up on OBJ? Like Jerry Jones is sitting there saying,
"No, that's what I'm saying. They had. That's I'm just explaining it.
They were desperate, and that's the other thing is you had them desperate. That's the other thing that I don't like is one, you run out of time. 2, you have them desperate. Like they wanted to get this deal done, and part of me says, well, let's be patient and see what what the Texans can get in the offseason for Brandin Cooks. You're not going to get this. I find it hard to believe that you get a 2 this offseason, and you're definitely not going to find a team this desperate.
No, it's going to be so. But that's what I wanted to say is like the Cooks tweet was his frustration that he thought a deal was done and it fell apart on him. And that's where his frustration is. The offseason now, Brandin Cooks' value, it's going to be like a 6th rounder or a 5th rounder. And this coming
it's going to be an Amari Cooper trade.
That's what I'm saying.
And this kind of brings it full circle. How you can tell that was such a stupid trade is because now the Cowboys are willing to take on Brandin Cooks and give up a 2nd round and change. And you know how good they've drafted? Like the Cowboys giving up a 2nd round pick is a big deal. If you look at like their 1st and 2nd round picks, like the way that Will McClay is drafted is ridiculous. They were so desperate because of the Amari Cooper trade that they were willing to do that.
Yeah.
And when you talk about running out of time and you talk about the fact that the team was that desperate, you're not going to get that opportunity again. If they get a 2nd, then I'll shut the hell up. But this is, you definitely got to take a look at this. And not to mention your culture guy, all of a sudden isn't a culture guy. So that's another element of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, supposedly he asked for a trade specifically from Caserio. I don't know when. I think it was pretty close to when the trade deadline was coming up. Cooks met with Caserio and asked for the trade. They tried to get it done, didn't work out, and now you've got an unhappy Brandin Cooks for the rest of the season. So we'll see if he will continue whenever there's a miscommunication between him and Mills, if he'll just walk off the field with his back to Mills like it happened in the last game that he was playing. So it's a bad deal, but it's disappointing. I will say that when I started getting all those details, it just really disappointing that they bypassed and missed out on the opportunity trying to overextend and get more on top of already getting good value. And
the
really
2nd round's my favorite round in the draft.
That's where you make your hay.
That's the bread. Like even in that Eagles game where they lost, like
picks 25 to about pick 60, 65. That's where teams can really, really improve a roster at such a low cost, because the decay on the contract value once you get past pick 20 really drops off, especially after you get out of the first 10, 12 picks. The contract value comes down fast and levels out. And once you get in that late 1st round, all of 2nd round, early 3rd round, man, you can really find some value there. And having that extra 2nd pick at the back half of the 2nd round would have been really nice to have. So
plus the GMs let it fly in that round.
Oh yeah.
Just let it fly. Like Philadelphia, their quarterback, starting running back, and AJ Brown, they were all 2nd round picks.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Derrick Henry, 2nd round pick.
Yeah. So it's rough hearing that. You see what happens. See, maybe they can reassess, maybe they can make amends, and he's here on the roster for 2023. And there's, it's probably not going to be enough value out there to make a move, or maybe they just make a move, just he's unhappy and wants to go, and it's just going to be a crappy situation. And I think fans are going to be quite upset this coming off season if they end up having to trade him for a day 3 pick. But as for the trade deadline altogether, it was fun and exciting. 10 trades on the deadline day, a few trades, the day before that. And I think it's a function that you're starting to see the younger GMs come in, and they're willing to move those draft picks for players, considering the cost of rookie contracts, and you're bringing in that trade value. And so it's just a function of the younger GMs that are willing to make those kind of moves, are willing to make those kind of trades, not the old GM model. I'm going to hoard picks. I want to keep that 20% lottery pick in the 3rd round versus going to get a vet to help my team get over the hump for the rest of the year. So it was very exciting to see all the trades. I hope it continues. I hope
they're going to extend it. They're going to extend it probably 2 weeks.
And that's fine. I don't have any problem with that.
Amazing.
I don't know that we'll ever get to the major league, the baseball and NBA level trading that goes on, but it's good to go get, 3 or 4 years ago, you were lucky to have 1 or 2 trades on the trade deadline. And this time we're having 10 or 11 trades. It's a step in the right direction for the fan perspective. And it's really exciting. So, it could have been 12 trades if Houston would have fell on through with theirs. So it was a bad deal, but there was some good trades. We saw Roquan Smith went to Baltimore. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out because he's a free agent next year, and there's only one franchise tag to be used. And if they use the franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, then does Baltimore end up using that second? They traded away a second round pick just for. Does it turn out to be a half season rental because Roquan Smith's going to want $20 million a year next year as an off ball linebacker? We talked about TJ Hawkinson going to Minnesota, interdivision trade. I don't want to try to butcher his name, the GM up in Minnesota, but he did all the draft study work in San Francisco. And so there's one person you don't want to trade with is probably him up in Minnesota. Howie Roseman's the other GM that I wouldn't want to trade with because I feel like you're going to get fleeced every time. And then we saw Robert Quinn go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia continued. Yeah, that was a good move by Roseman. Like I just said, he's very, very good trader.
They're signing Roquan too, by the way, Baltimore.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, DeCosta's always been heavy into the defense side of the ball, and they'll make it work. It's just going to be very tight if they end up having to use a exclusive franchise tag on Lamar at I think it's going to be around $49 million. So
they're not going to franchise tag him.
You think they'll get the extension done, or you think 100%. They're going to let him? Okay,
100%.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because Roquan Smith doesn't have an agent, and Lamar Jackson doesn't have an agent. They represent themselves. And the only other one.
It's always good when you're going against Jack Easterby, though.
Yeah. No, Laramie won that battle pretty easily. He came into that negotiation, I think, at $28 million a year, $27 million a year, and they end up at 22. So, and then Clay Chapel went to Chicago. That was kind of a weird one. That kind of came out of nowhere, and Chicago,
people have so much hope for him.
Yeah. Pittsburgh has always had a very strong history of drafting very good wide receivers, especially on day 2. And then they end up flipping them for a draft pick after 3 years of it. But it was just weird to see that from Chicago, from a team who's still rebuilding or tearing down the roster to get to the end of the rebuild to start next year because they have bukus of cap space next year and a lot of draft capital. And to use some of that on Claypool, I don't know. Some were speculating that they were doing that to kind of help them evaluate Justin Fields because he didn't really have any other targets beyond Darnell Mooney. Does that make any? Does that make any sense to you? And Kmet, yeah.
I mean, I guess it makes sense
to you, yeah, a little bit.
It makes sense. I mean, Justin Fields has looked better right now. I don't know how married they are to it, but he's looked better.
Yeah,
but I don't think trading for Chase Claypool. I think it works whether it's Justin Fields or whether it's another quarterback.
Yeah. And we talked about Hawkinson in Minnesota, a little mind-boggling in the division. So that's what I'm talking about. The younger GMs, I don't think they care about that in-division stuff.
They shouldn't. The in-division stuff's stupid. If you don't think the guy helps your team, trade him somewhere else.
Yeah. If you get compensation, then trade him to whoever. Who cares if it's in division?
The Patriots traded Bledsoe to Buffalo. The Eagles traded Donovan McNabb to the Washington. Then our words, it happens, man. Don't trade in division. Don't care. If I don't want him, let him go.
Cooks hates Mills. Shaking my head. Oh.
He probably does.
I think I don't know if he's upset at Mills. He doesn't like Pep's system, from what it sounds like. He hasn't been too happy with the system. I don't play in it, but it doesn't look
There's a gray area, but I don't love it.
I don't love it. We got a couple of requests over on Twitter Spaces. We'll see if we can get some of these folks in here. So we'll go with Leonidas first. He's been waiting the longest. Leonidas, what you got, buddy?
Hey, I just got a question about Lovey, man. So, our season, I mean, it's looking like it's going down the drain. So I'm just curious, with all this draft capital that we're about to get, do you guys actually think that Lovey's about to stick around for another year? even though we're seeing all these coaches getting fired and here and there, even though it's going to look like a bad move, well, not a bad move, it's going to look bad on the Texans because we fired David Culley after one season? Or do you think he's just going to get like that Romeo Cornell role and Nick's going to get his guy default next year following?
I mean, that's a tough one. I guess it depends on Lovey if he wants to be here. Does he want to be here for another year? I don't know. I mean, maybe he's ready to retire, but I think at this point, I think
that would be awesome
if he retired.
No, I mean, really, because it would get rid of any perception stuff.
Yeah,
that I don't even think would necessarily be fair. Just like how San Francisco went through 2 one and dones. Like if Lovie Smith just decided after this year to retire, it would be so great. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm putting that as a show topic tomorrow. That is like amazing.
See, we can help you out. So, but I mean, if he didn't want to retire and I think he would be here for another year, and then he would have to do very well to make it through next season. And I don't, like Landry was saying, the perception, it would be, from a PR standpoint, it'd be quite difficult to move on from Lovey.
2 one and dones is I mean, San Francisco had to deal with it before they hired Shanahan. It's a bad look all the way around. No matter what.
It's on top of
it was Chip Kelly and Tom Sula. Just not a good look for a GM.
It's a bad look, but it's the circumstances of how they ended up with Lovie Smith as their choice as well. So
do you not think Indianapolis kind of minimizes that though?
No. No, but I just think the way that whole
they kind of went McCown train
with the Flores suit, and then they went to Lovey, and I think just all of that, put it all just together, and it makes it from a very difficult PR standpoint to move on from Lovey. So appreciate the question, Leonidas. Got a couple more here. So Cash, and then we'll go with Bryson after that. Cash, what you got, buddy? Take yourself off mute. Uh-oh. Going once, going twice. All right, Cash, come back if you want to talk. All right, we'll go to Bryson. Bryson, good evening. What you got, sir?
Hey, what's up, man? Just a quick question. Going back to that number 1 pick, is if we were to move on from Mills, generally speaking, would Bryce be the only quarterback that we feel comfortable doing that on? Are there other prospects that we would feel comfortable doing that on if we were to move on from Mills?
It seems like it's Bryce or nothing, because I don't know, I feel like some folks are starting to sour a little bit on CJ Stroud. Maybe I'm misreading that. And, I saw a note from a tweet today from Dame Brugler up at The Athletic, who's their big draft guy.
The best draft guy.
He said that this quarterback class doesn't have quite the amount of love that people think it does. And I don't think, he said class, so I don't think he's picking on one specific player, but I think it's kind of just Bryce Young or nothing else at this point.
And that's what it should be. That's what it should be. For me, it's Bryce Young or bust. Bryce Young or something else.
Yeah.
Bryce Young or Will,
Jalen Carter, one of them.
Carter, man. Scary.
Yeah, see, there you go. Jordan Davis.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, Bryson. Thanks for the question.
Of course.
Yeah, have a good evening.
You too.
But yeah, it'll be fun to see where they go with that draft pick. Whether it's number 1, hopefully it's the number 1 pick, but we'll see what happens from there. But that's really all I had for the night, man. I really didn't have much else to cover. I mean, I had a ton of other.
Way to make the show sound exciting, man.
This was an exciting show.
Goodness gracious.
What is your problem, man?
That's all I had. I didn't have much today. I feel like you covered a lot of ground there, man.
I did cover a lot of ground.
But now people think you didn't have anything.
Okay, let me just, I'll erase what I just said in the post.
Dump
I'll delete all that. Dump it all. This was a jam-packed show, Landry. I appreciate all the topics that we got into. It's fantastic. I had a lot more topics to get to, but we just didn't quite get them all.
We didn't. And the good thing about it is we're not even halfway through, so it's going to be a really fun time. Again, the chase for number one, the evaluation of the players on the roster, all the wacky stuff going on around the division. This is a fun time to be alive, man. I'm happy to be talking to you.
Oh, well, thank you for joining me once again, sir. And I appreciate everybody listening in, whether you're on Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Twitter Spaces. Had a lot of folks listening in from the various sources. Appreciate all the comments and the questions. A lot of good interactions. Those are always welcomed, and we have a lot of fun with these. And just make sure you following everybody involved here. We got at Landry Locker on Twitter, and he's got a YouTube channel, The Locker Room. Make sure you get on top of that. He's dumping out daily content, sometimes twice a day if he's not wearing himself too thin. And he's just, covering all aspects of everything, not just football. So, and as for myself, at Texans Cap, and also I have the newsletter, capandtrade.substack.com. So get in on that. I'll probably get back on the written form as we get towards the end of the year. And we'll continue on with the weekly show here through the end of the season, end of the off season, as far as we can keep going. So, Landry, I appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you, man.
All right. Well, y'all have a good night. All right. Well, y'all have a good night, and we will shut it down. Thank you.